Welcome back, everyone. This is a new session of Pilot Bootcamp. So we are on week 1. We are getting going with the new 6-week course where you're going to write a whole pilot in just these 6 classes. So we are on a stage channel, meaning that you have to request to speak by clicking that hand icon if you want to speak out loud using your mic. You then have to click that green bar that says accept invitation. So we are Script Camp. We're the main community for Skill Camp. This is our first and biggest Discord group, and we also have many other servers that you can see here. Our other main writing community is going to be Word Camp, which is focused on writing novels instead of writing scripts for film and TV. We have lots of free classes, table reads, script swaps, and writers groups and things like this, and we also have classes for our supporting members like the boot camps and labs. So the free intro is going to be week 0 and week 1 for most boot camps, which are open to absolutely everyone. And if you want to continue in these courses, so full 6 weeks for TV, full 8 weeks for feature, or full 90 days for novel, then you should sign up for membership, which you can do at scriptcamp.net. And by signing up, you get access to every class, every event on every server, every boot camp, including the brand new ones, the brand new classes that are coming out, such as brand new class on video editing, which starts today on Film Camp. So we have plenty of other classes and topics like novel writing, filmmaking, coding, cartoons, graphic design, language learning, and things like this. Membership also comes with video library access that includes recordings of every class we do, including those member-exclusive classes. You get member chat channels, exclusive Discord access, and also big discounts on proofreads and consultations and services like that. You'll also get 100 script coins every month, which you can use on things like table reads or merchandise. And by subscribing yearly, you will save 40%. That's just $19 a month if you're subscribing yearly to Script Camp. So definitely sign up if you're interested in taking more classes than just these free ones, and that if you want to be part of our awesome, growing writer community. So I'm a screenwriter myself. I have written, the only TV show I've written for was Creepshow for Shudder and AMC, which is not exactly a traditionally staffed show. That was an anthology show. So it worked a little bit differently, but I am a working repped TV and film writer, teach the boot camps and weekly writers lab, and have also been moving very much into writing novels these past couple of years as well. So I teach the novel boot camps. I've written 6 novels now, but haven't had one published yet. So one of these days I'll get it. But for now, I always try to be as upfront as possible about what my specialties are. In terms of writing, I am pretty exclusively writing things like action, horror, and thriller and dark comedy, with the occasional historical or things like that. So that's where my taste is, but you can write whatever you want in these courses. I will give equal and even feedback to everyone, even if it is out of my sort of subject range. We also have swaps if maybe you wanted to swap with somebody who you think might be a better match to read your work and give you feedback. Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 9 a.m. we have these swaps for features, TV, or shorts that you can do with your fellow writers and get feedback in just one single week. You do have to give them feedback as well, but that just kind of ensures that level of accountability. We have a bunch of free classes coming up. How to fix scenes, so scene workshop May 3rd, dialogue and subtext May 10th, theme on May 17th, novel outlining continues May 4th. So we did one novel outline workshop. We're doing another one there on WordCamp. These are the first couple classes of our novel boot camp. So those are we're opening that to try to cast a wide net and get as many people as possible for our upcoming novel course, which is our longest one that we do. It's 12 weeks. It takes a long time to write a book. And a brand new class that I've never taught before on a brand new topic, which I call the Victory Lap. And this is sort of hang on, let me try to find some words to speak aloud. Something I enjoy lately is trying to get deeper into the finer points of structure, to the extent where I'll kind of assign names to little techniques or tricks that I see in structure that I just enjoy, or that I use in my writing, or that I always like seeing, or something like this. And so the first of these is going to be called the Victory Lap, and this is on a technique that you see sometimes in which there is not a traditional epilogue, but sort of another climax after the first climax, but the second climax is sort of just intended to be as satisfying and fun as possible. It kind of replaces the traditional epilogue. So that's going to be a class just on like that kind of technique and on late third act kind of stuff. Another class I'm working on in that series is called the Valley of Uncertainty, which hyper-focuses on the end of Triangle Locks moving into Break Into 2. So sort of the last 10 minutes or so of the first act. and sometimes bleeding a little bit over into the early second act. But the Valley of Uncertainty being the place in the movie where we know some of what's possible, but not all of what's possible. And that uncertainty sort of lets us do certain tricks and fun things. So these are going to be part of that series of laser-focused structure classes that want to, really, really dig deep into one particular part of structure and different fun ways to use it. Okay, so here's just a list of everything coming up. Coding classes on Code Camp, 7 a.m. May 23rd and June 27th on UI design and Discord bots. And editing is still happening today, right, Nacho? Isn't that at 5?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, is that moved?
Adobe dropped a whole bunch of new AI features, and so I'm going to take a little bit more time because the intro editing class, it's sort of like comparing DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere, and so like what's better for your project. And yeah, I need a little more time to kind of work with this, like the AI generation in Adobe, and then so that's going to be a little bit later.
And somehow my mic got turned off on the stream for a second. So I am back on the stream, just going over the overview. Oh, I think I turned it off while Nacho was speaking. So for those watching online, wondering why I went quiet, I am now back. So we're going to get started today with pilot and series loglines. And then we can also go more into story engine stuff. So what is a story engine? How do they work? How can we kind of define it or think of your story engine and make sure that yours is working? We will revisit, but not go extensively into genre, time slot, and format. You should go back to last week if you want to read more about that. Though we will recap this concept of premise versus status quo-based continuity in your show. This is just something you have to know and be writing with this idea of continuity in mind. How would your show theoretically continue? Whether it would be with the next chapter in the same coherent story, or is it going to be with another situation that's just like the first one and uses those same pieces in a kind of endlessly repeatable way, like an episode of The Simpsons or Law and Order or any of these other kind of just status quo continuity shows. We can look a little bit at how to fill out a sketchbook, but there's really just not that many guidelines or templates for sketchbook. It's just a place to keep all your ideas. So we can give you some suggestions of things that I would put at the top of your sketchbook and things that you can work on in there, but there is not a template for these. And then we will have logline feedback. So if you have not already gotten feedback on your logline, then this would be a good time to do it. remember, for TV, we have 2 separate long lines. There's one for the series and one for the pilot that just expresses what is happening in the pilot alone. It's helpful to have both of those really worked out before you get started working any further in your outlining. And, of course, we'll have lots of time for questions and things like that. If you want to ask a question at any time, you can raise your hand by clicking that hand icon, and then I can call you to speak aloud. And when we go over your logline, you should be ready to speak aloud and answer questions and talk it over. All right, let's dive in. So anyone who's not already done so, you can feel free to unmute and tell us about yourself. What is it that you're trying to write? What are your goals? What have you written before? What is your favorite type of show? Some TV writer that you're trying to be like or something like that. If you've not already told us about yourself, feel free to do that now by either raising a hand or tell us in the chat. Tell us what you're trying to write or anything else. Any volunteers? Don't see any volunteers raising their hands, but I see some folks typing in the chat. Shawnee tells us, I've written 14 scripts. One got stolen. Oh dear. Anyone else who wants to tell us about what you've written before, what you're hoping to write, anything like that, feel free to use the chat and I will check back. Oh, is this a raised hand? Go ahead. Maybe not. Okay. Oh, here's a raised hand. Writer 1A, go ahead. I've invited you to the stage, so you'll need to click that green icon that says accept invitation. Looks like that. And then you'll need to unmute your mic. If you're not sure where the unmute button is, it is a small white microphone in the bottom left corner of your Discord window. Oh, they left the room. Okay, well, so feel free to use the text chat if you'd like to tell us about yourself. Oh, they're back on stage. Hi, Writer 1A. Do you want to tell us about you or your project? So your mic is still muted. You'll need to find a way to unmute that if you want to be heard. Okay, you can stay up on the stage and speak up whenever you're able to get that fixed. Let's go to Luke for the moment. Go ahead, Luke.
I don't have a lot to say, but I enjoy a lot the Breaking Bad scripts, Better Call Saul scripts, anything that Vince Gilligan is credited in as a writer. Though, I don't know, some of his sensibilities. Anyway, I really enjoy those as an example of unfilmables. And I had another one I was going to bring up, but I'm having a day. So I'm writing a science fiction kung fu sumo pilot, but I'm still kind of in the sketchbook phase. I don't even have my loglines.
Okay, well, maybe this week would be a time to nail those down and to get ready to move ahead to the next step.
I'm also working on a sci-fi pilot. That's a sci-fi comedy pilot.
Yeah, what stage is that one at?
About the same. I'm almost to the end of scene cards with that one, I think, but they're a lot more nebulous than my boy band script scene cards.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, good to have different things you can rotate between. If you get stuck on one, maybe work on the other for a while. I usually recommend try to write one thing through and finish it all the way, but some people do like to have, like, kind of juggle and hop back and forth, if that's helpful for you.
It's a chaotic mess, but that's how my brain operates, so.
Hashtag bless this mess. Thank you for that, Luke. Let's see. Writer 1A, it looks like your mic is unmuted. Can you speak aloud? Maybe not. Okay, maybe it's a problem with the device. You might want to try joining on a phone if you're on a computer, or on a computer if you're on a phone. Okay, feel free to volunteer again later, and you can try again if you'd like to speak up. So let's move ahead into the overview of the course. Wait, did I see one more raised hand? No. All right. So we are going to be working on pilots that we're trying to finish in 6 weeks. So this question of is it going to be good is something that's kind of beside the point. It doesn't really matter if it's going to be good or not. And ultimately, kind of the answer is no. It's not going to be that good. It's your first draft, and it might be your first time ever writing a pilot. So with that in mind, I would just try to move beyond that idea that any individual script has to be good in the first place. Nothing has to be good for you to have learned from it and for you to move on to the next thing. Let's look at ground rules. So these are just like strong suggestions and guidelines and things like this. If you really have something that you're excited about and want to work on that seems to defy one of these, then you can go for it. But I've been teaching these a long time, like more than 2 years now, and we've seen many try, and these rules are here to help you and for a reason is all I will say. So don't do true stories, anthologies, or adaptations, unless that adaptation is just like, I don't know, you're going to take some public, like I mentioned in the adaptation class, you can always take some public domain character or world and set your own show within that, but an adaptation that tries to be a faithful one will just run you into lots of problems. Don't do time travel, just trust me. Don't do time travel. Probably don't do a historical unless you have some sort of strong basis already in that era, or I don't know, it was your college major in Victorian studies or something like that, or you only watch Westerns, or maybe like you have some foundation. I wouldn't start fresh on some era that you know nothing about. You want to beware of clones, parallel universes, or stories that revolve around extensive intertwining flashback structures or things like that. Generally want to avoid anything that is so complicated that it'll be harder to write in 6 weeks. The goal for this is really take your best shot at it, finish it, and move on to the next one. Writer 1A, maybe you can try to speak up? So you're on stage with mic unmuted, but we're still not getting sound. Maybe you're on push to talk mode. You can check that by going to user settings. Click the gear in the bottom left, then go to voice and video and make sure that you don't have push to talk mode, you have voice activity. Okay, feel free to try again once you sort that out if you want. Changing devices usually will fix the issue. Okay, so this is just a good time to take a big swing on something weird and funny, something that will just keep you excited to return to it for 6 weeks. And then you'll feel okay moving on from. I would not work on passion projects in bootcamp classes. If you're just starting out, you need to get scripts done. You need to learn what it's like to write a complete script, finish it to the best of your ability, and move on. The only 3 things you really need to do in order to be moving forward in your potential career as a film or TV writer is reading a lot, as in 1 script a week, bare minimum, more like 3. Writing, meaning consistently having output of some kind, and moving on, meaning ideally moving on once you have finished something to the best of your ability. But if you're not able to, then you're moving on regardless, or in spite of that, right? So you have to be moving on. You can't be getting stuck on projects. It's very damaging to your improvement and momentum if you are getting stuck on any one script for more than 6 months ever. If you don't have an idea yet, maybe just try some crazy mashup of concepts that you've always wanted to see or think would be funny. I don't know, maybe a movie about or a TV show about a goose that fights crime, or I don't know, like a demon that becomes the president. Just think of something that sounds good as a pitch and just do your best. Like, try to just make that work and make that fun. I would also get used to the idea of sharing work, even at these early stages. It is sometimes difficult to get notes at early stages, but if you're writing in a room, you have to be ready for, like, this is how writers' rooms work. You're sharing early pitches of ideas, or what's that thing they always do? Okay, bad pitch, right? Like, there's these techniques people use to sort of distance themselves from it before, but you don't even really need to do that. You don't have to be like, okay, bad pitch, not this, but something like this. That's kind of like that famous development speak that we're so sick of hearing all the time. What's that joke? How many development executives does it take to screw in a light bulb? Answer, well, does it have to be like a light bulb, though? Very true. Also, if you're going to continue past these initial, let's call them tutorial classes, you should use your real name instead of a username. Conor Kyle is indeed my real name, and in the industry, you cannot be using screen names. So we ask that you use a real name. You can use a nickname or a middle name. We're not going to like background check you or whatever, but like just please do. All right, let's check for questions or any other introductions before we dive in to sketchbook stuff. I see a question in the chat. How do you write a screenplay and not get passionate about it? Well, that's a good question. I guess I would say if you get passionate about everything you write, you need to sort of redefine what you do with things and how you think of things that you are passionate about. If your ideas are so precious to you that you can't bear them never becoming something or never getting made or never moving you forward or anything like that, you should be writing in a different medium besides TV and film. You should be writing prose because you will retain the most ownership over short stories, novelettes, novellas, and novel manuscripts and things like that. You are the sole and only creative voice for the most part when it comes to prose. And also art, things like comics. If you're writing and drawing webcomics or things like that, you own complete 100% control of those things. And you should be passionate about the things that you work on and that they're exciting and fun to you. But like when you are a screenwriter or TV writer, sometimes you are pitching on the Kit Kat bar movie or something like that. And the challenge isn't necessarily to not become passionate, but it is to find a way to be passionate about whatever it is you're working on until it's done. And then you move on. That's the challenge. So it's not that you shouldn't be passionate, just redefine what passionate means for you is what I would suggest. I see a question in the chat. The problem is I don't have a plot. Well, in this course we cover how to make a plot, how to break one down. We start with idea, just perhaps genre, perhaps just the very seed of an idea, something like that. And then you can build that up into a logline. And once you have a strong logline, that'll act as that foundation. You have a logline, genre, and comps. Those act as the concrete foundation for your entire structure that you will then continue to build on. And by having a strong logline, you will then have the basis for a strong outline. And you'll already have a bunch of your key plot points that you can put onto your plot board and then reverse engineer and work forward and backward to connect all those dots. So we cover how to come up with plots in this very class. It's not really a matter of coming up with them. It's almost mathematical the way I approach it, right? The logline tells you where certain things will happen in the story, and then you're using this sort of technique of story math or whatever to make the best and most logical choices to fill in those gaps and craft the most compelling possible version of that thing. So it's not some mystical process where you have to wait for the muse to emerge and tell you her secrets or something like this. We are doing a very practical craft in some ways. Like this is what some people say, chopping wood and hauling water. This is like this is not some mystical, indefinable, nebulous art form. This is a craft, and you can improve on it the more that you do it. In the same way that making chairs or tables, you will get better at making chairs and tables the more chairs and tables that you make. Fun/practice. I can do a funny Vader series. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Do a funny Darth Vader series. Or a character, if you don't want to use IP, you could pick a character that's, a Dark Lord guy that acts kind of like that. It's totally up to you. Pick something that is fun for you. Let's see. Go ahead, Writer 1A, if you can try to speak one more time, if that is going to work. Go ahead. Nope, still no sounds. Okay, I'll just leave you on the stage if you want, and you can keep trying to make that work, and if I hear a voice out of the blue, I will know it's you and not a ghost. So feel free to keep trying stuff if you want. I won't take you off the stage. Here's a comment. It's just practice so we can take a character we like and thrust them into the plot. Sure. And even that, you can look at that as a valid way of coming up with original stories, too. You can say, wouldn't it be cool if Darth Vader did this thing, and then in your own original story, you have a character that just is like that, and then fulfills that same function, and by the time you're done, it won't even seem that much like the original anymore. So that can be a totally valid way of plotting and planning as well. I mean, and also if you're just practicing, yeah, you can include public domain, or you can include IP characters in your story if you really want to. Okay, so let's look at what's a sketchbook. So the things that you really need to include are going to be at the very top. So if you haven't already made this, go ahead and make this now. It's just a blank Google Doc. There's nothing fancy about this sketchbook. You're going to call it name of show sketchbook, and at the top you're going to include these things. If you know what these are already, you can fill them in. If you don't know, then write them down so you know what to try to fill out this week. title, genre, format/time slot, comps, series, and pilot loglines. That would be, if you are looking for a sort of checklist of stuff to do this week, that would be your checklist. It's okay if title kind of falls to the wayside, though. That, to many people, is one of the least important things, but a nice title can really clarify what the hook of a show is, so I think it's important, but like it can come later. It's one of the easiest things to swap out. Doesn't require you to change anything else, usually. Genre we talked about last week, but I will just give you that guideline of don't pick more than 2 genres, like 2 is the max. Format and time slot, we also went over. I will briefly touch on that now, just so if you missed last week, you want to know what that is and means. So the 2 basic continuity formats of TV. One second, let me just scroll ahead to my... Don't I have a slide on here? You know, I totally thought I had a slide on continuity time slot or continuity formats within this same presentation. I guess not. Wow, we've been all over the place today. Go ahead.
You mean like the time slot?
Oh, here it is. I got it.
Slide 38?
Yeah, I found it. Thank you,
Okay.
Nacho. It's like when I try to find the socks and my mom shows up and she's like, did you look right there? No, Mom, I didn't look right there, obviously. Nacho is the sock mom of Script Camp. Okay, so format and time slot. Your choices are basically half hour or full hour. There are exceptions to that we see sometimes, but like for a portfolio, what people are going to be looking for is half hour or full hour pilots. So that's your goal. That's your choices. So you're incentivized if you are, I don't know, you are busy, you have kids, don't think you can complete a script in 6 weeks. You're incentivized to pick the half hour option simply because it is half as many pages, and in some ways half as much work to do. The expectation is that half hour will be comedy. Let me rephrase. All comedies are half hour. There are hour-long shows with elements of comedy in them, but shows that are pitched as pure comedy with capital C, sitcoms and things like that, are half hour. There are no hour-long sitcoms. That is one of the few sort of genres that I would not recommend trying to pioneer. So comedy's half hour. But it's not that half hour exclusively has to be comedy. We also see a lot of, for instance, action-adventure cartoons are largely half hour. And we also have seen enough exceptions nowadays, like horror, thriller, dramedy, mystery, sometimes unusual stuff like that has been made in the half-hour format too. Shows like Barry on HBO are half an hour. Shows like Dead to Me, which is a dramedy, are half an hour. M. Night Shyamalan's Servant on Apple TV is horror, thriller, mystery, and that's half an hour. So you can definitely do half hour whatever you want. And I actually am really intrigued by half-hour shows that are not comedy. So that is a good place to innovate. I would not try to innovate by writing hour-long comedies, but in fact by writing half-hour other stuff. Go ahead and do that. That is a great idea. 60-minute, are going to be 60 to 65 page long scripts. Various genres, like whatever genre you want except straight comedy. And you just have twice as much to do, twice as many plates to spin, and more room for subplots. That's the meme of the guy hitting the used car the used car salesman. There's so much room for subplots in this baby. So yeah, you can pack it full of subplots. You can have quite a lot going on in an hour-long show. We do see 15-minute shows and 70-minute shows and things like this now and then, but those are usually not like portfolio-type scripts that you'd want to have. Okay, somebody says, let me guess, it froze. Did my stream freeze? Can you still hear me?
Looks like it's working okay. Are you on time slot and format? Change the...
I am, yes.
Okay, yeah, works fine.
Is it the stream on YouTube, or you mean on Discord?
Maybe just on Eden's computer?
I hear that the stream froze. Okay. Yeah, maybe disconnect and reconnect to the room, and it can might reset the Discord stream. Okay, so here's just a bunch of examples of runtimes and page lengths of shows. Like, don't take this as gospel or take this way too seriously, but essentially 30-minute shows, 30 to 35 page long scripts, 60-minute shows, 60 to 65 page long scripts. Premise, pilot, this is what we mean by continuity format. Premise versus status quo. So premise pilots are like a long movie, or the show is like a long movie, and the first episode is just the very first chapter of that longer movie. And we're going to need to watch the episodes in order to follow the plots. Characters change more over the course of multiple seasons. And status quo is the opposite, where every episode resets back to square one. You can tune into any episode, any season, and still follow the story. The characters don't usually change as much, if at all, in status quo shows, except sometimes when, for instance, like the writing staff changes over the years. A question in the chat: do I recommend to start as with a character-driven idea or a plot-driven idea for TV shows? Always plot-driven with me. I think that characters are just tools to explore premises. Premises are just like that very basic idea at the core of your story. The logline is a one-sentence expression of that premise, and characters are the ways that we explore that premise as well. So in my sort of style of writing, always plot, plot, plot. Character can be swapped out. Like, plot comes first, and then I would sort of audition different potential characters to go through that plot. Plot above all. And genres we talked about last week, so I won't go into, but here are your options, essentially. Don't make up your own genre, and don't pick something that is not a TV genre. Like, sometimes people will be like, my genre is existential. It's like, no, that's not a genre of TV. Your choices are comedy, drama, crime, sci-fi, fantasy, action, adventure, mystery, thriller, and horror. Action, adventure, and mystery, thriller. Sometimes people would say it's just one or the other, so I'll kind of lump those together. But you can pick one or the other if you really want to. It's just like adventure is sort of a weird spot. Adventure is like not that codified of a TV genre, so we kind of say action adventure is one thing. We usually will use that to describe things like your Saturday morning cartoons and your G.I. Joe and your superhero, your He-Mans and stuff like that. Although obviously He-Man is fantasy as well. And mystery thriller, same sort of thing, is that a lot of shows that have a central mystery will often have strong elements of thriller, and many thriller-type shows will often have a centralized question or mystery-style driving force behind the plot. So there's a lot of bleed-through there. Anyway, that's all we're going to say on these for now. So let's go into questions, and then we will touch on loglines and go into more detail on these. So any questions on what we've covered so far? See the question, romance. Yes, this is a good question. So romance is a weird kind of in-between thing when it comes to TV because, for instance, when it comes to a movie, a romance is quite easy to codify because it ends with a happy ending of that couple ending up together. But when it comes to like TV shows that have romantic elements, you would have to either have them continually breaking up and getting back together over seasons, or the other option would be it takes a long time for a central couple to get together, and TV shows usually have such a big ensemble cast that it doesn't always fit as nicely into that romance genre. So in TV, we're going to start from the basis of comedy or drama, and then say, like something like Bridgerton, for instance, is a historical drama with a strong romance kind of like element to it. So you can look at it that way. I mean, there's very few shows that people would describe as just romance. Almost always it's going to be comedy or drama that has romantic plot lines in it. Any other questions on just these fundamentals and ground rules before we go into loglines? You can raise a hand or use the text chat. If you're looking for the chat, you can find it by mousing over the Classroom channel on the left-hand side of your Discord window. Find that small white word bubble that says Open Chat and click that to open the chat on the right-hand side of the pane. Okay, I don't see any other questions for the moment, so let's go into loglines. So a TV logline has two prongs to it, two separate halves. We have the series and the pilot. That's two separate ones. And they are connected to the same premise, though, right? The same central idea. The series logline is going to focus on conveying that unique world and situation and characters and help us understand, like, the kind of things that can happen in this world, or if it's a premise show, the broader overarching direction of the entire show. Whereas the pilot logline is more like a feature in that we just want to know what is the inciting incident that gets the story started, who's it about, like who's the protagonist, what do they have to do, what's standing in their way, and how are they going to try to achieve that. And maybe a sense of the walls, which are the scope, a ticking clock or time frame of the story. We can look at some examples. So here's a couple. We have these great 3 different series loglines here that convey either a premise or a status quo idea, right? So Ozark is a fantastic premise logline because this tells us generally what we're doing over 5 seasons of the show. He must launder $500 million in 5 years. That does not sound like it could be covered in just a pilot. That sounds like multiple years of TV. And it sounds like a big overall goal in the distance. So giving your characters something really difficult and something very long-term to be achieving for, or to be striving for. You know, taking down a government or something like that, right? That's multiple seasons of TV. And, you know, really leading an army, winning World War II, things like this. These are all going to take quite a few episodes to get through, and are not going to be done in just one simple story. And then the status quo pilot underneath this, you can see it's a description of the type of situations and the type of conflict and the type of drama. I know it's a comedy, but the type of dramatic issues that the characters will confront. A black family man struggles to gain a sense of cultural identity while raising his kids in a white upper middle class neighborhood. So that is a kind of an abstracted goal. It's not one thing he has to do. It's not very tangible, but that's okay because it's a status quo series logline that is trying to describe the sorts of situations that the main character gets into. Okay, hopefully that's clear on how the series logline should either convey what is the longer term trajectory of the series or what is the type of repeatable situation that we will have every week. Any questions on series logline? Okay, I don't see any questions. Great, let's move to Pilot Logline. So Pilot Logline, you can use the template a little more like this. You don't absolutely always have to use this, but it's just a good place to start because these are some of the key questions we will be wondering about. When or after inciting incident, that being the event that kicks off the story, an adjective protagonist must conflict, that's the second act, or the middle, before stakes. That's what's going to happen if they fail. Simple. And if your logline doesn't fit precisely into that mold, that's fine. If we imply the answers to some of these questions, that's also fine. But generally, we want to know what starts off the story, who it's about, what they have to do. So pilot logline should imply that the primary action is going to be tracked through visuals, like we're going to see people doing stuff and accomplishing those goals. The goals should also be tangible in the pilot logline, not struggling to gain a sense of cultural identity. That works for a series logline. But for a pilot logline, it would be something like, when his kid is late for soccer practice, an exasperated family man must rush from work and get the kid and return the kid to practice before he's late for the big meeting, or something like that, right? Like, obviously that's a terrible logline, but that sense of what is the specific problem, the specific way of addressing it, and what happens if we fail. That's the essentials for pilot logline. And also you might want to kind of, in both the series and pilot loglines, you could do some work towards clarifying the hook of your show. What is the thing that makes your show different and distinct from every other show that's like this? Sense of irony, new or different point of view, some variation or interesting mashup of familiar elements. And you want to promise your first episode is going to actually take advantage of the premise of your show in general, meaning that you are writing a show about, a detective trying to quit drinking, or like a struggling detective trying to quit drinking, and then you make the first episode, he's trying to bust a bootlegger. Okay, now I can see how he's going to be this character is going to be specifically and uniquely challenged by that idea of, I'm trying to quit drinking, and yet the people I'm busting up, I'm confiscating all their rum or moonshine or whatever it is. This actually sounds kind of good. Somebody should write a moonshine detective type pilot, or prohibition era detective pilot. That sounds cool. We like to have an element of the familiar mixed with something fresh or unique. You can totally do that. It's like, Law and Order, but set in the Great Depression is like already like kind of a good hook. It's not just changing the setting or just changing the main character isn't always a great hook, but it's a good start. It's a really good start. So remember, motivation, stakes, and urgency. We want to know why the main character has to act, so it should feature an inciting incident that feels like it really requires a response from the main character. It shouldn't feel disconnected from them or like they could just ignore it. Adjective protagonist is telling us usually who are they in terms of at the start of the story, in terms of premise loglines. So what is it, like a meek chemistry teacher or like a, something like that, right? At the start, that's who they are. And that specifically expresses the thing that they will be challenged by, or the thing that they will be utilizing as a unique tactic, or the thing that ultimately needs to change. So pick your adjective carefully. Most conflict is telling us what they're doing in the middle of the episode, and stakes are telling us what happens if they fail. Ticking clock, we only have 10 minutes, not 10 minutes, that's too short for a full-length pilot, but we only have, until Tuesday when mom and dad get back from their vacation for us to clean up the whole party, or something like that, right? The classic parents are getting home kind of thing. That makes for a great, very simple and clear ticking clock that everyone can relate to. Comps. So work on your loglines for a little bit, and then I will call for you to post them in the chat, and we can take a look and give you some feedback and suggestions. If you've already written it and posted it in the chat, you will need to just wait a minute and then wait until I call open season on posting them, and then we will do it all at once. Otherwise, they will just get lost, and I can't keep track of all of them. So start working on your loglines if you haven't already, and if in the next, what is it, 10:49. So we have an hour, 10 minutes left. We will do at least one big round of feedback on everybody. So I'll give you a little time as I talk about comps. But be ready to copy and paste that into chat, and also be ready to answer questions and talk about it. It's okay if you don't have much worked out yet, or it's not complete, or there's placeholders in it, or anything else. Okay, comps. This means that. It's as simple as that. We are picking two other shows that your show is kind of like in an effort to express what your goals are in terms of tone and subject matter. So that's what we mean by comparable. Either the tone or the subject matter is the comparable element. You can think of it in terms of the world of X, but with the tone, style, or approach of Y. That's not an exact science, and that won't always work, but like I find that to be a useful starting point. Comps are kind of dumb, but as much as people kind of make fun of them, they really do use them, and this is used all the time. In fact, moving it when I first started in Hollywood in 2016, 2017, I kind of thought these were out of style and kind of passé, but no, the managers love comps. They love comps, so you should absolutely have comps ready for your project, and you should limit it to just two of them. This meets that, not this meets that, meets that, meets that, meets that. Otherwise, it just becomes really unclear what you're doing. So pick just two things. If you can't think of any comps, you can ask the room for them, but not being able to think of any comps sounds like a good sign. It's one of those deceptive things where it's like, that sounds like, oh, my story can't be compared to anything, but it's actually a bad sign. It's deceptive like that, right? It's actually a sign that you don't watch that much TV and don't have that sense of where your script fits in the marketplace. So even if you have to like fudge it a little bit, like it's not that much like this thing, but it conveys the central idea of your show, then you can use that as a comp. Also, you can pick something that is not a show. One of your comps should be a TV show, but the other one can be a video game or a Broadway play, or like whatever you want. Not whatever you want. It should be a work of mainstream fiction. It should not be something no one's heard of, and it should not be something that's not a work of fiction. You can't comp, I don't know, a painting. God, I want to see someone do that now, though. Watch everybody comp paintings now for their script. It's like Die Hard meets Starry Night. But yeah, generally just don't be obscure or try to show off. You don't earn points for somebody not knowing what one of your comps is. You only lose points for that. It just annoys people to have to look something up. So pick something that is either recent and on TV now, or something that's very classic and well-remembered and everybody will know. You can comp The Office even though The Office is not on the air. Yes, everybody knows The Office. You can comp Lost even though Lost is not on the air. Everybody knows it. So you have to kind of watch enough TV and be a big enough fan to know the shows that everybody is aware of. Even the shows people don't watch. Like, I don't watch this. I've never seen an episode of The Sopranos, but I know what The Sopranos is. So you could, like, that's one of those, you have to just kind of have the sense of what has soaked into culture to the extent that everyone would know it. Has it been done already? You can ask this question if you're curious. It doesn't matter that much. Originality is not really your goal at the start. Your goal is to write scripts, and you need to write a bunch of scripts before you will be any good at this. That's just the law of the land. That's how the world works. But regardless of that, you can ask if you're curious, has this been done already? I would make this little checklist for yourself. You can ask yourself, has it been done with high quality or popularity, recently, or with the same take? If only one of those is true, then you are fine, and I would consider your idea to be pretty original. If two of those are true, then you probably want to make your idea a little more original and pick some different elements, some different point of view, different main character, different genre trappings, different setting, different time periods, something to make it feel a little bit more distinct, right? So with high quality or popularity, with the same take and style, and recently are your three sort of check boxes for your premise in terms of originality. So if I'm going to do something that's it's a lot like Lord of the Rings, for instance. I want to do a fantasy adventure with a bunch of elves, humans, and dwarves that get together and go on a quest. Well, I have to ask, has that been done already with high quality or popularity? Yes, I would say so. Return of the King won Best Picture and like a ton of Oscars. So high quality and popularity, I would say. Recently. Okay, that was longer than 10 years ago. That was 20 years ago. That movie came out in 2003. Could I maybe do it? Okay, all right. With the same take, style, approach, or point of view. Oh, I was going to do my show with an elf, a dwarf, and a human that go on a quest together that kind of sounds like the same take. That, I would say, has been done. So I would mix something up. Maybe say, okay, I want to do something set in the world of elves and dwarves and stuff like that, but I don't know, what about a noir detective type show? That could be neat. We've never seen like Hobbit noir before. That would be really cool. That would be a new take or style. So you can always do that. You can always consider your idea in terms of originality and introduce elements to try to make it feel more unique and fresh. And that can kind of clarify what your hook is, right? It's like why you might take somebody that's seen a million of these shows, and you have to imagine your audience has seen a lot of shows like your show before. You're trying to sell it to them, and they can watch anything. They can pick anything to watch in the world. You know how many options people have of things to watch nowadays that's not just movies and TV, but is like their phone? A million options of things they could watch anytime. So now you have to hook people that have seen a bunch of that thing and get them to watch it. So think of that in terms of just the basic hook of your premise. What would you just say to your friend who has seen a lot of those things? And obviously maybe your friend would take your recommendation. How about like a family member or something like that? Somebody who won't always watch what you tell them to watch. And how would you get them interested? How would you just, in a couple words, in like one sentence, hook them on the idea that they're going to watch something they haven't exactly seen before? So have it in mind, but it's not a make or break thing. If you're writing a show that has been done before or something like that, it's more important that you be writing scripts all the way through, finishing them, and learning how to organize and complete stuff, and kind of cementing learning your process and cementing your process is much more important than writing blindingly original things when you're just getting started. So don't worry that much about this. Okay, I think we're ready to share some loglines. Let's go ahead and post them in the chat. And as you're posting them, I will take last questions. So feel free to raise a hand and ask if you have more questions about loglines or anything we've talked about so far. Go ahead and post your loglines now, and I will start reading them out and giving feedback as soon as we're through the questions. I'll give you guys a minute or two to post those. I think I see a question. Go ahead.
To take the first 4 episodes and stitch them together as a TV movie for a pilot?
I have never heard of anyone doing that. No, I would not do that.
Okay.
Just the single pilot. I mean, it's hard enough to write a good pilot. Like, it's so hard to write a good one. I wouldn't try to write 4 pilots then smash them together.
Okay. It's because I have an idea for a pilot, but then I kind of want to add on 3 more episodes to flesh out the world a little bit.
Okay.
And complete the arc so that it could work as a finale.
A finale. Okay. So
for a whole series.
Okay. I would probably just write a feature if you want to do that. There's not really a precedent for writing multiple part pilots. Like, no one's going to read more than a single pilot. And if they see that it's more than 30 or 60 pages, they're going to be like, this is not a pilot, so they won't read it. So I'd recommend just stick with the time slots in terms of TV writing. If you want to write something that has a definitive ending, a feature or a book would be a better choice.
Okay. Well, it's only meant to be a provisional finale if it doesn't get picked up. So it could work as both a feature or as 4 separate episodes.
Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, you can write a feature and then consider adapting it into a pilot as well.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Any other questions on loglines or any of the basics that we've talked about?
You're quite welcome. By the way, I had one last revision for the mecha pilot, if that was okay.
Great. Okay. Yeah, we're so this is just week 1. It sounds like you are a couple weeks ahead of schedule in terms of your pilot. You don't have to get any more revisions checked by me. I would consider it signed off. I would say go ahead and start your pages.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
No problem. So I would recommend also, if you fall behind or you want to just spend more time on the outlining, it's always totally fine to, in one bootcamp, just finish the outline. And then, for instance, wait until the next bootcamp starts, which is usually right after or within a week or 2 afterwards. And then you'll have a big head start and a lot of the work done to begin with. So you can kind of fudge it and get extra time for your bootcamp if you do it that way. We see it happen all the time. Okay, so let's check the chat, and I'll see if there are any more questions, and then we will start looking at loglines. Nacho has mentioned to me I have not gone over story engines yet. Good point. Let's do our first glance at loglines first, and then we will talk story engines. I see one from Luke and Shawnee. Anyone else? I see a series logline from Pollock. Okay, that's at least 3 of them. So, yeah, let's just take a look at these. And then if you make some changes to it by the end of class that you want to ask about, then that sounds good. We'll start with Luke.
Hello.
Alrighty. Hi, Luke. Why don't you read out what you've got for us?
All right. Again, these are rough. I just wrote these. In a future destroyed by martial arts, an ageless sumo wanders exotic wastes. I hate that. I really hate exotic wastes. I've got to find a creative way to describe this world. Working odd jobs to feed himself and bring a glimpse of peace to a war-torn age.
All right, awesome. And the pilot?
When a mining community is threatened by an ancient war god, a secretive sumo master comes out of hiding to help, inviting the ire of his enemies.
All right, thanks for that. So let's take a look. Series logline. A future destroyed by martial arts. What does that mean?
It's a post-apocalyptic age, but instead of nukes, it was kung fu that done blowed up the world.
But how does that make sense?
It makes sense in my brain. I don't know how to make it make sense on paper without completely describing the world.
Okay.
Same with, exotic wastes or whatever.
So it sounds cool. I will admit it sounds cool, but I don't really understand it. It doesn't really make sense.
Okay.
Not just a world destroyed, a future destroyed by martial arts. It's like, what are you even trying to say? A bunch of ninjas like punched every world leader to death or something? What are you talking about? Like, I don't get it.
Mortal Kombat punched the world back into the Iron Age, basically.
Oh, so is it sounds like, is it like a magic apocalypse?
Yeah.
It is, okay.
In a way, but magic is martial arts in this universe.
So I think we need to know that. So it wasn't really martial arts. That sounds like you're saying, I don't know, a clan of warriors beat up all the world leaders and destroyed society somehow, which I just can't even begin to envision. What you're saying is that the magic that is used by these martial artist practitioners triggered an apocalypse that destroyed the world in a magical way, right?
I'm not quite sure exactly how it happened, but in my brain it's like it's power creep, gun creep. In martial arts things, there's people are constantly trying to become the most powerful and one up each other. What if that ends up, if you have people that have the powers of Goku running around, they're nuclear weapons, so they would blow up the world.
So you would probably say something like, in a world destroyed by reckless magic.
Reckless kung fu? Reckless...
because most audiences are not familiar with the idea that kung fu equals magic to the extent that it could destroy the whole world.
In a world destroyed by ultra-powerful kung fu, how do you say that in one word?
I think that kind of works, but it doesn't. It might just be too confusing and beside the point to define too carefully what destroyed the world in your intro, because it seems like your main character is not.
In a destroyed world.
Yeah, in a bleak post-apocalyptic future is all we need to know. Like we
in an Iron Age like future. I don't know how to say that.
That sounds fine. In like a post-apocalyptic future Iron Age, something like that. I get it. You don't really need to explain why if that, unless your main character is the one what done it or something like that. Did your main character destroy the world?
No, I don't think so. I think he was like one of the few chosen people that was meant to protect the world and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, that could matter. So you might want to include that if that is pretty relevant to his journey in some way. But otherwise, if it's not...
Maybe. I haven't decided what kind of chosen one he is yet.
Okay.
Besides reluctant.
Reluctant, okay. So...
Like, I don't want to be the chosen one. The chosen one is bad. There should be no chosen one.
But it sounds like he's not doing chosen one stuff. He's just wandering, doing odd jobs, like Kung Fu style, right?
Yeah, maybe we don't even need a chosen one thing. That's maybe too many ideas competing.
It could be. An ageless sumo. Is sumo the name for a practitioner of sumo? I did not know that.
Actually, so if a judoka is a practitioner of judo, what is a practitioner of sumo? I thought it was sumo.
Maybe. I'm actually asking. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna look it up.
Either way, you could say an ageless sumo warrior or something like that. That would also be fine. A foolish samurai
a
warrior.
rikishi or sumotori.
Okay, no one's going to know that. You might as well say sumo warrior.
Okay.
Wanders exotic wastes, working odd jobs to feed himself and bring a glimpse of peace to a war-torn age. So, bring a glimpse... I think you mean a glimmer of peace, not a glimpse.
Right.
And is his goal actually to restore peace, or is his goal just to get by?
His goal is more just to get by.
Just to get by. Okay, so bringing peace is almost like a byproduct of him just trying to get by.
It's a byproduct. Yeah, it's what he does every week. Like, solve the problem of the week.
I get it. So yeah, you might want to just make sure it's not misleading and trying to say like he's working towards some kind of grander goal if he's actually not working towards some kind of grander goal.
Gotcha.
Let's look at the pilot.
He's just trying to feed himself and get by.
Yeah, and that kind of fits in the sort of martial artist sensibilities of like, you know, I don't want to fight, I don't want any trouble, I'm just trying to get by, but just by them being around, they end up cleaning up the town or whatever. Pilot. When a mining community is threatened by an ancient war god, a sumo master comes out of hiding to help, inviting the ire of his enemies. So I like the fact that he's a secretive sumo master comes out of hiding to help is a great phrase for your pilot logline. Is he going to fight a god?
Yeah, he's going to fight a big, giant metal monster god thing.
Oh, it's like a robot.
It's more like a suit of armor.
Okay, but I mean, it is a metal guy. It is a big metal guy.
It's a big metal guy, yeah.
Okay. So most people would not necessarily know that that's what you mean by ancient war god. We don't normally think of gods having, like, it might behoove you to, instead of calling it that, call it like an ancient construct or something like that, right? Where it makes sense.
Construct is much better,
artist. It does not leap to my mind that a martial artist could fight a god and win or whatever, unless we're in a total... I mean, this does make it feel a lot like a kind of anime Dragon Ball kind of world, which is totally fine if that's what you're doing, but like I think you should just paint the picture of what the thing is, whereas a god could be so many things in people's minds that I just can't see them envisioning it properly. So you probably want to phrase it like an ancient automaton or something like that.
Okay. Construct is much better, but...
Sure. Okay, so it's threatening a mining community, I guess. Now that you say it's a big metal guy, I can kind of imagine maybe why. Maybe it's trying to eat the ore or whatever. He inviting the ire of his enemies. Does that mean other enemies besides the ancient war god?
Yeah, it means there's lots of there's lots of factions in this world. One of them wants to eliminate martial arts altogether. And there's lots of martial artists that would want to challenge this guy for his spot if they knew who he was, and that kind of thing. So
it's just
know.
that as an ending clause in a logline, you probably want to end it with something more like, and he must blank, right? And keep it active. You're just saying he's going to be attacked. That's passive and responsive. So a sumo master comes out of hiding to help and must deal with blank in addition to blank. You know what I mean? And now must defeat both his old rivals, who are his old bloodthirsty rivals, and also this war god kind of thing. So
just frame it as him.
Go ahead.
So frame it with him being the active. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So not just inviting the ire, he must then defeat these enemies, or evade them, or whatever it is that he's doing there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay.
But basics seem to be working pretty well. Did you have questions about this one?
No, I mean, you pointed out a couple of things that I didn't hate as much as everything else that I hate about these, but yeah, it's helpful.
Cool. All right. Thanks for sharing. Do you have a title?
Not yet. I mean, what can you really call it? Sumo? Like, uh,
Sumo Future Guy. That's a bad
uh,
translation of the original.
yeah, yeah, just that, but in Japanese.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure a title. Maybe people in chat will give you
maybe.
suggestions.
It's kind of weird that I ended up doing Japan. I wanted to do China originally, so I'm gonna have to do some more research. But
Okay.
I'm thinking, the Western, sort of the Wild West, is just a blank canvas. The whole world is the Wild West. Sort of the same thing is true in like a ancient China kung fu story.
Yeah.
The whole world is China. I think I'm going to do the same thing and just treat the whole world as the Japanese islands,
Oh,
sort of
okay.
post-apocalyptic style.
Cool. Sounds good. Kind of like actually maybe not. I was gonna say like Pokemon. Pokemon does weird things with the world as we know it, but
It's a
maybe
lot,
not.
yeah. Pokemon World is it's just Japanese islands everywhere.
I guess they
Hmm.
do have other lands that are kind of reminiscent of other countries. Like they have a USA kind of place, I think, and they have like a
It's
Hawaii
Burgerland.
kind of place. Yeah, but generally, yeah, it's like just sort of transposing Japanese stuff in lots of different places. Thanks for
The
this.
last sumo is way too close to Last Samurai.
Yeah, but
I like wrote it down and I was like, oh no, delete,
it's
delete.
close to be. It would be a good title if Last Samurai didn't exist. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
give it some thought and let us know if you think of a good title for it by the end of class.
All right, we'll do.
Thanks, Luke. Go ahead, Arthur. Looks like your mic is muted. Are you able to unmute and speak out loud? Okay, I'll leave you on the stage and you can try to figure out the issue and I'll call on you next.
I think Pollock was. I think he was server muted. Try again. Can you hear us?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Okay, we hear you now. So I see a series logline. Did you say? I think you said you had a pilot as well. Did I miss that in the chat?
Yeah, I think you did. It's right above it.
Right above it. Okay, let me get that. I think it's this one.
Let me check.
This one, right?
Pilot, yes,
Okay.
pilot logline.
Thanks for this. Can you read out what you have for us?
Sure. An alternate version of a Dark Lord goes on wacky adventures with his increasingly weird entourage.
Okay.
And the pilot logline is Bizarro Vader and the Tournament of Heroes. After a case of mistaken identity, an alternate version of a Dark Lord is thrust into a tournament of villains versus heroes on the hero's side.
Thanks for that. So, when you say an alternate version, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, it's not the Dark Lord we know. It's an alternate version of it. It's.
What's
How do I
different?
explain it? It's in a different universe, but like similar, but not not the universe we're familiar with.
Which one are we familiar with?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay,
So
this is you were talking about Star Wars. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this case, you wouldn't even need to say it's an alternate version because it's your story. We know it's an alternate version. So you can just say a Dark Lord goes on wacky adventures with his increasingly weird entourage.
Okay.
Alternate version is just confusing if it's in the logline. Then it sounds like alternate to what, right? So just state it as if it's. I mean, for the purposes of this is your original character. This is not, the character from an existing franchise. After a case of mistaken identity, a Dark Lord is thrust into.
I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead. Sorry, what's your question?
You're kind of breaking up on my end.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So let's look at the pilot logline. case of mistaken identity, a Dark Lord is thrust into a tournament of villains versus heroes on the hero's side. That's interesting. I kind of get it. He's mistaken to be one of the good guys and is then put onto the hero's side. I guess would then ask, what is your character trying to do? Win the tournament?
Well, since I based it off of Star Wars, he's trying to get the plans of something.
What about the tournament?
The tournament is a distraction if you think about it. He was just thrust into it, so he needs to get through the tournament to get back to his original goal.
Okay, I would include that in the pilot logline then. We need to know what his original goal was that he's trying to get back to.
Oh, okay.
So this is just like a problem of the week. You're sort of saying this is like his challenge that he's dealing with this week, and then next week there would be another sort of challenge like this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically a challenge of the week type of story.
Okay, got it. Then you want to just clarify what is the goal that he's trying to achieve and get back to, right? Like, as he's about to blow up a planet with his enemy's base on it, something like that, he gets stuck in this tournament and then needs to... I guess you're saying he's trying to find a way to get out of the tournament and not win it, right? Because if he won it, he would be, like, beating his own friends? Right?
He wants to neither get out of the tournament, either by winning it or by losing. But the idea of it is that he's either way too powerful to actually lose a battle, or he's so prideful that he will never allow someone to beat him.
You probably want to go down that road instead. If you say that he's so powerful he can't even lose a battle, I struggle to even understand why he's stuck in the tournament in the first place. Can't he just like kill the guys?
No, I can go the alternate, or the other route.
So what might actually get him involved in the plot better is if it's his own personality that sort of forces him to take part in this tournament. Like, once a challenge has been issued, he can never not see it through, or something like that.
What?
What?
Yeah.
Are you having trouble hearing me again?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I just didn't get the get through part.
Okay. So yeah, you might want to consider that it's his own sort of flaws or his own like inability to turn away from a challenge or something that's getting him stuck in the situation, not his lack of competence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not his lack of confidence. It's the fact that he's prideful and doesn't want to lose a battle between these other villains.
Other villains. Okay.
He wants to see himself.
So it's not his original team. You're just saying these are sort of just other bad guys in the same world?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important as well. So yeah, I would try to convey his actual motivation in the pilot logline as well. So it's more than just the mistaken identity. That's how he originally gets into that situation. But beyond that, it's his own flaws that force him to sort of compete. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that.
Cool. Any questions?
No.
Great.
The original goal was... Yeah. Just go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's keep going. So I saw a few more log lines. The next one we got was from Shawnee. Oh, I think she left. Did she leave the... She left the room. Okay. Simon.
Yeah, well, I actually have two alternate pilot log lines, one for the first part only, and then another encompassing the entire 4-part series.
This is Pilot Bootcamp. Let's look at just the single-part pilot logline.
Yep.
Go ahead.
After a dangerous TikTok challenge almost claims his life, a teen slacker must help the Reaper who saved him hunt down a rogue ghost.
Nice. This is pretty refined. Nice job. And he must help the Reaper. Why?
As a condition for coming back to life.
Good. Very good. So include that. And then you're totally set.
Okay.
We want to know the motivation. So why does he actually have to do it? And are you saying that... I get the feeling that this is going to be the kind of thing where at the end he ends up still kind of being an errand boy for the Grim Reapers and he doesn't get to come back to life yet? Or are you saying at the end of the pilot he does come back to life?
He does come back to life, but he's still an errand boy for the Grim Reaper.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that works.
And that's kind of his fate at the end of the 4-part version, but he clears the hospital bill debt too. He's just in debt to Todd at the end of the 4-part bit, but he's still in debt to the hospital at the end of the first part.
Who's Todd? Is Todd the Reaper?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this looks really good. Just include that part about in order to, as part of a deal where he would get to come back to life, and then you've got a great pilot logline. Do you have a series logline as well?
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I just need to figure out where it is.
Okay, I can come back to you if you want.
This is the... Oh, wait, I got it.
After a Grim Reaper saves his life, a teenage slacker must juggle working as a Reaper to repay the debt with the challenges of high school. Nice. This is working pretty well. Why is teenage in brackets?
Oh, that was a typo.
Okay.
It was meant to be temporary, but...
Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. A teenage slacker. I totally get the idea. Mm-hmm. Juggle, not working as a Reaper, juggle reaping or juggle his job as a Reaper. You generally want to avoid constructions exactly like that. So must juggle grim reaping and paying or something like that. You see what I mean?
To repay a divine debt.
Sure, yeah, to repay the divine debt with the challenges of high school. Yeah, I totally get it. Looks good. Any questions?
Nope, but what about the 4-part version?
We're not doing 4-part pilots in Pilot Bootcamp.
Okay.
People will only read one part. You only get one shot. And you can always write more pilots later. You can even try other versions. Maybe if you want to try half hour, you can also try a full hour or something like that. But nobody's going to read multi-part pilots. But this looks good, though. Nice job with the premise. I think I totally get it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just asked about the 4-part pilot because I wanted to make something work just as well as both 4 episodes and the movie.
Okay, that's not really a normal avenue to TV writing or a normal thing that TV writers are doing, but if you really want to do that, then you can write whatever you want.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hope that's useful. Let's, we see a comment from Twitch. Just says, Autumn Aesthetic just says Loglines, then makes the face that looks like this. I know, people don't like loglines, they find them challenging, but it's a really important part of your foundation for your project as you build on it. Autumn says, I don't think I can write a logline. I think you can. And I think you can use this template if that's useful, but you don't have to stick to exactly this template. Just try your best. When inciting incident, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. Ooh, there it is. All right, I see one from Dakota. Luke is suggesting the title Kung Food, but it's not. Kung Fu is the one fatal flaw in that. It's because sumo is not Kung Fu. That's where it's tragic how when a good pun doesn't apply. All right, hi Dakota.
Hello, how are you all?
Doing good. What are we looking at today?
Oh, not much. So I figured it could be just something fun to at least attempt, try. Not super, I've never really done a lot of pilots, so I figured it'd be fun to do one. So basically, the series logline is a deaf jazz musician must become an FBI informant to avoid prison after he becomes implicated in a drug cartel ring.
Nice. Okay.
And the pilot is when he is the only witness to his best friend's murder in the back of a well-known jazz club. A deaf jazz musician finds himself cornered by police and his band members.
All right, thanks for this. So, Little Boy, is this a crime drama?
Yep.
It is. Okay. A deaf jazz musician. So you started with the effect, then gave us the cause. You should start with the cause, then do the effect. So when he becomes implicated in a drug cartel ring, a deaf jazz musician must become an FBI informant to avoid prison. Good series logline. The pilot. When he's the only witness to his best friend's murder in the back of a well-known jazz club, a deaf jazz musician finds himself cornered by the police and his band members. That sounds like you've just kind of taken us up to the inciting incident without kind of giving us the rest. So what does he have to then do? Like, what's the goalpost for just the pilot? It's okay if you're not sure yet, or you don't know, but do you have an idea of what that might be?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, so you might imagine if you're centering the whole show around this one. Wait, hang on. No, I misunderstood. So he's the witness to the murder, but they're not trying to solve the murder. He's trying to. Yeah. Wait. Help me out there. So, are they trying to actually?
Sure.
Is the murder key to the TV show's story, or is that just the way? Is it like the origin story of an FBI informant?
Yes, it's the second one.
It's the second one. Okay. Then, in that case, wait. What is that? Where did the drug cartel ring come in?
So, it's the jazz musicians are fences for drug cartel. Yeah. Yeah.
The murder was connected. Okay. So, he becomes implicated in a cartel ring. What I would think would be, if this is a show about an FBI informant doing FBI informant stuff, then you need a clear goal and case for him to be like working on. You could say this is going to be like a thing of the week type show, like a procedural, where every episode is like that would be something like Blacklist or any of those sort of like NBC crime investigation type shows. What's the other one? The Mentalist or something like that, right?
Right.
In which case you might imagine that you want him to sort of use his uniqueness as a deaf musician to sort of solve the crimes. Like, is he investigating a drug ring within the world of musicians? That could maybe be the foundation for the show. It sounds like you're saying that is already kind of the case, so maybe you could center the logline on that a little more. And if that's the case, then you want to give us the sense of who's the like first bad guy that he's taking down. Like, who's the first villain of the week if it's that kind of show. So maybe, when he's recruited by the FBI. And in this case, the specifics of the murder don't matter as much if it's not really about the murder. That's just like how we get into him being an informant. So I would focus mostly on what he's doing now that he is working for the FBI, and not as much on the circumstances around that inciting incident there. But you might want to consider the first guy he has to take down is a clarinetist that's smuggling crack into Boston Harbor, something like that, right? Just give us an example of who that first opponent or what that first major challenge will be.
Got it. Okay.
Cool.
Neat.
Makes sense? So yeah, I think the series logline is working pretty well once you flip around the cause and effect. The pilot is just going to require you to get more concrete and give us an example of the first sort of conflict in the show. Wait, hang on, let me just ask. Were you thinking status quo or premise format?
Probably premise.
Premise. Okay, so in that case, you probably want to give him a longer term goal wherein the first pilot will just be, or the pilot will be just the very first step of achieving that long term goal. Like, in order to take down a drug ring that operates in the musician circles, he must first get invited, or he must first play a show at a cartel bar, or something like that. Like, just give us the very first step of that much longer infiltration and investigation that he has to do.
Yeah.
But concrete goalpost is the main thing.
Got it.
Cool. Questions?
Nope.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Why did I think you were going to comp a painting? Oh, maybe because you said something about it earlier. What was it that you said about the paintings? Scrolling up. There was once one movie that theoretically comped a painting, The Mill and the Cross, a Swedish-Polish film from 2011 that was a Sundance Tribeca darling that's literally about a painting called The Procession to Calvary by Peter Bruegel the Elder from 1564. So it technically does comp the painting. It has Hitchcock rope vibe. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I've never seen someone comp a painting before. Except we did have the girl with the pearl earring, as somebody did also joke about in the chat. I think there's also a movie called Mona Lisa Smile, which is maybe about the actual Mona Lisa. Maybe that's actually not about her at all, and I just heard the title and I thought it would be. Somebody look that up. Maybe that's a rom-com. I'm told it is a rom-com. Okay, so let's check. Do we have more pilot loglines? Who else would like feedback on their early logline? If not, I will go into story engines. Autumn says, I do have a plot already, though. That's great. You can come join us on Discord and share plot our loglines with us if you want to. Since I don't see any more loglines for the moment, I will go into story engine. Oh, I see one here. Okay, let's do Dan's, and then I'll talk story engine. Outer Spice. That's a cool title. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hey, why don't you read out what you've got for us here?
When a perfectionist chef finds her business going under, she takes an opportunity to get another job on a space shuttle and must learn how to cook properly when zero gravity affects taste.
Wow, okay. So I don't see a genre. Is this a sci-fi comedy?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I literally just came up with it right then. I was like, first thing in my head, and I just said, I got to get the log line out there before my attention span puts something else in there instead.
Hey, Chef in Space is quite a good hook. Nice job. When a chef finds her business going under, so that just feels like a process rather than one definite thing happening. So you might want to say something like when she goes bankrupt, or just something a little more definite to start off the story. She takes an opportunity to get another job on a space shuttle and must learn how to cook properly when zero gravity affects her. So would you think that is she going back to Earth like between episodes, like in the episodes, and trying to make her Earth business succeed as well, or something like that, or is the show mostly set in space? Do you think?
Mostly in space, I would say. On the she's just lives and works on the shuttle.
Okay, if it's mostly in space, then we probably, similar to the last logline about how we don't need that many circumstances about what got your character into the situation if it doesn't end up mattering for the overall series. The reasons she got the job in space don't seem that complicated. It's just like she needed a new job, so she got one, right? So I would probably start with when a chef takes a job on a space station, or maybe something like, is she like the first gourmet chef in space, or something like that? Maybe that could be part of the premise as well. No one's ever done this before. I don't think in real life we've ever had gourmet chefs in space. So I would give that some thought, and you may not.
When a perfectionist chef takes a job on a space shuttle as the first gourmet chef, on a shuttle as the first gourmet chef in space, and must learn how to cook properly when zero gravity affects taste.
Yeah, I mean more than taste, right? It affects how you do everything in the kitchen. Does it actually affect taste?
I don't know. This is why the sci-fi aspect comes in.
Oh, but
that's why it's fiction.
But people in real life have been to space.
Have you ever had a gourmet meal in space? I don't think so.
You got me. I have never been to space at all. But people,
okay. This will be out. This will be outdated and incorrect science in some 20 to 50, 100 years. But for now.
But we've had people go to space and eat food. Like, people do eat food in space. It's mostly like those little packets of freeze-dried crap,
tasty
right?
things for shuttle tours.
Right. So I think we know if it affects taste or not, don't we? I mean, unless you're saying to the extent that there's usually not good food in space, that kind of would affect taste in that sense.
Yeah, nobody's ordering creme brulee in space.
Right. But that feels like it would make her job easier.
Or filet mignon.
That almost feels like it would make her job easier and not harder, though, doesn't it?
Why?
Because if all their other options are terrible, then something even a little bit good would be preferable?
Well, and when you're trying to serve aristocrats who have refined and very particular tastes on a tour shuttle.
Okay, I would include that for sure. You just say a space shuttle, which we usually imagine a space shuttle as one of those smaller, like, science exploration-based craft, like the moon landing and stuff like that. Whereas if it's like space tourism or something like that, that's a little bit of a different arena. So I would include that in the logline. And do you have a pilot logline you want to share too, or just this one for now?
Just this one for now.
All right, any questions?
No, I guess not.
All right, it's a good hook, though. Just chef in space. Blank in space is almost always a workable hook. Thanks, Dan. We got a question in the chat. Is this on Twitch live? Yes, we are on Twitch, Twitter. We just got a comment on Facebook by John McCurry. He says, Prayers for my orphanage here in Kenya. We really have some challenges like lack of clean water. Is that like are you doing a logline, or are you just talking about real life, or is this a spam comment by a bot? I don't know, but I kind of like it. You know what? Prayers for you and your village, sir. Or your orphanage, excuse me. Didn't know they were doing much screenwriting in orphanages. Maybe we should open an orphanage exclusive program. Okay, any other serious loglines? Just kidding, they don't have to be serious, they can be funny. Cool, I don't see any more for now. If you have an update or you have a new one by the end of class, I'm glad to take a look, but for now, let's go into story engines. Okay, so we didn't really talk, we don't often talk about story engine in week 1, or sorry, in week 0, but we wait until week 1 just because there's a lot to get into here that you have to have a little bit more of your story in place to have a sense of what the engine would be. Let me find that slide. Here we go. So, a story engine is kind of an amalgamation of several different elements. It's not one thing that you can always write down and codify and define super easily. It's not like you can say the story engine is blank, usually. A story engine is several different elements. Let me just clear up or move this a little bit so you can read it better. It's elements that sort of sum up to create conflict on your show that will sustain many episodes of a theoretical series that would last for years. Typically, TV shows, at least in the sort of US model, are intended to go for either years or like this kind of endless format, especially when it comes to status quo shows. Once you get to like 10 years of reruns, then, you know, it becomes very, very profitable. So it is in every show's best interest to run as long as possible. So we typically expect that a show would be intended to go on for many seasons. You can write a limited series or something like that. That's not against the rules, but like we anticipate most shows to theoretically try to go on as long as they can, or at least until they reach that, you know, golden stopping point that the showrunner had in mind. They don't always obviously get to do that on their own terms. So the engine should be clear from the series logline, and it's telling us the sorts of conflict that will be in the show, the dynamics between the characters, and it's going to ultimately fuse your characters' story world and situations together to continually generate that sense of recurring conflict. A strong story engine will suggest hundreds of hours of television. So we got to check your series logline and make sure it feels like not just 1 hour of content, not just one thing that needs to be done that will be achieved relatively easily or quickly. It's something that either would be describing the types of situations that could repeat forever, or they're telling us the first chapter of a longer journey that's going to take a couple years to get through. All right, let's do a new logline. I see one from Kiz called Walls. And we can also remark on story engine on this one now that I've covered the basics. Hi, Kiz.
Hello.
Let's look at your loglines.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to copy paste it onto our document here. Why don't you read out what you have for us?
Okay. Walls. Comedies. Series logline, when 24-year-old Rantia Okula, which is like a separation, she must navigate living in the same house per Islamic law as a man she's still in love with. And for the pilot, I have 24-year-old Rania, through a series of flashbacks, recants her first month being married to her almost ex-husband, while also reeling what may be the end of their relationship.
All right, thanks for this. Let's read it over and make sure everything's working. So when 24-year-old Rania's husband grants her a separation, so like you mean like a divorce, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She must navigate living in the same house per Islamic law as a man with a man that she's still in love with.
Yeah.
Grants her, so she didn't want the divorce?
No, she didn't, but she just felt like he wanted it, so she asked for it, like, you know, before you asked for it.
Oh, wait. Okay, so you say he grants her a divorce. That sounds like she wanted it, but you're actually saying he divorces her against her.
No,
like
she asked for the divorce because she feels like she feels like he's not like he wants it, but he's too scared to ask for it.
So she asked for it because she thinks that he wants it, even though she doesn't want it, huh?
Yeah, she's twisted like that.
It's a little confusing.
Okay.
So for the purposes of the logline, even if that is kind of how it plays out in the story, you might want to just frame it a little bit more like when she goes through a divorce, or when her husband divorces her, or something like that. The motivations are kind of complicated to begin with, and ultimately, if she didn't want it, that's really key to understanding the story. She's still in love with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so she must navigate living in the same house. Per Islamic law, I think I understand what you mean. So, given the laws, he's not allowed to move out.
Yeah, they kind of have to like live together to like have a reconciliation period. That's kind of what it's called.
Oh, reconciliation period. That's interesting. I would mention that in the logline.
Okay.
How long is that period supposed to last?
Okay. It's I think it's usually like 4 weeks.
Oh, not very long. Okay.
So yeah, well, it depends because like it's a bit complicated for her because she's kind of like she might be pregnant, she might not be pregnant, so she kind of has to wait until she figures out if she's pregnant or not. If that makes sense.
Okay. But yeah, no, I get the idea of you say it's like a status quo type comedy about living in a house with a person who has divorced you that you are still in love with. I get the basics. It's probably not coming of age though, because coming of age we usually are talking about teenagers. If your characters are already adults in their 20s, then most people would not call that coming of age.
What would I call it? Because like ultimately, like she's going to like rediscover herself because she got married when she was really young and everything. So it's like she's like coming of age, like like she's becoming herself, I guess.
I understand what you mean, but just comedy is totally fine. You don't need to like include every emotional beat in just the genres themselves. This is just, it's a comedy with the theme is about sort of a second coming of age. Like, I get the idea. You don't need to include a genre or a subgenre for it.
Okay.
Let's look at the pilot. So 24-year-old Rania, so we don't need the character names. People won't really remember the names. So it's best to define them in terms of, you can start with like their job or something like that, if that's useful. Sometimes you would say like, a 24-year-old architect or something like that, because the job kind of gives us an impression of the resources they have and their position in life. Are they poor? Are they rich? Stuff like that. You don't have to use the job though. You might define her as like a mother or something like that. I know your character's not a mother yet, but like you can say, an anxious mother or like an overprotective father or something like that would be a fine way to define a character too. So pick an adjective noun rather than giving us your character's name.
Okay.
Okay, so through a series of flashbacks, recants. I think you mean recounts, not recants. Recant means something totally else.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. English just isn't my friend right now.
That's okay. So she recounts her first month being married to her almost ex-husband. What is an almost ex-husband?
Because like they're technically not officially divorced.
Oh,
but like
I see.
Yeah.
So currently he is her almost ex, but at that time I would just say her husband. So her first month being married to her husband, while also reeling. What do you mean by reeling? Feeling?
Like she's just like kind of like going through it. Like basically, in my head, this is like a short, limited series. So like each episode kind of like conquers like a different like emotion. So in the first episode, she's kind of like in denial a bit. Okay. So like she still thinks like, oh yeah, this is going to work out. Like everything's going to be fine. Like, bro, we live in the same house. Like, you're still going to fall in love with me. Like you did it once, you're going to do it again.
Okay. So maybe think like in terms of a goal, a clear, concrete goal for your character. Maybe something like it would be their anniversary coming up and she's going to plan a big party to try to get him to change his mind or something like that, right?
Okay, yeah.
Look for a specific concrete event with that sense of a goalpost. Like it's going to be your character's first attempt to solving this issue or problem. It's going to go terrible. It's a comedy, so it's going to go terribly wrong. We understand that. But like, give us that sense of what she's trying to do.
Okay.
Also, we probably don't really need to know about the flashback structure. Through a series of flashbacks recounts her first, like, just tell us what the story is. It doesn't really, the framing of the story doesn't matter as much. So just start with when blank incident happens. When her husband surprises her with a divorce or something like that, she tries to, like, in the reconciliation period, she must do blank before blank. Or, her first attempt to fix the problem is going to be, I don't know why the party was the first thing that came to my mind, but, like, she's going to, renew their vows, or she's going to invite their friends, or she's going to have a therapy session. She's going to, like, figure out...
She's actually inviting his friends over. How did you know?
Well, it seems like a logical attempt to, I don't know, talk some sense into him, sort of, I guess. So yeah, think of how you can frame that. Is it like a lunch, or is it a dinner? Is it a party? What event is it that she's putting on and that she wants to go right in order to try to achieve her goal?
Okay.
Questions?
No. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Sounds interesting. Different sort of cultural perspectives than we're used to seeing. So that's a great element of a hook that you can always include. It's like, this is sort of like these comedies or these any other thing you've seen before, but in an entirely different setting than you're used to. Okay, I see a pilot logline from Dan and maybe a revision to his sci-fi series logline. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Let's just make sure we're finished with story engines. So, story engine. Let's look at the elements of The Office, a show a lot of people have seen and are very familiar with. So it's not just one thing. We can't just say the story engine is Michael, right? It's not exactly just Michael. We have several different character dynamics that are going to create conflict for the entire show. I know Michael leaves eventually in the last seasons and it sort of becomes a different show, but that aside, Michael is our sort of flawed central protagonist with a persistent goal, which is often going to be a key part of what makes story engines tick. He's trying to, what is he always trying to do? Trying to increase sales and keep the office running smoothly. Okay, what's always getting in the way? His incompetence, awkwardness, weird off-color jokes, and which all stems from this desperate need for approval. And he causes problems with that desperate need for approval and with his flaws that ultimately need to be solved. That's like a key part of both. It's like the story engine includes both the problem and the solution, right? Or the attempted solution, or the perceived problem. But basically in this case, the main character is sort of his own worst enemy, and that is often going to do a lot for comedy series engines. Like the ways that the characters are flawed and continue to get in their own way and get in each other's way and drag each other back down, that sort of, all that stuff, that sort of like, we're always trying to get rich, but as soon as one of us gets richer than the others, we team up and take that one down. That kind of Always Sunny in Philadelphia type dynamic works really well on TV. So think of your central character and their flaws and personality traits and how they are going to both cause and solve problems. Second thing, a central romance. Jim and Pam is another relationship dynamic that happens in the show that is another reason for us to keep watching, because it's another set of promise, progress, and payoff. The promise is that eventually they will get together. The progress is they are, flirting in the office, and it's that kind of like getting closer and closer sort of thing. And also we eventually find out that Pam is engaged, and the progress comes in the sort of her realizing that Jim is the better choice and switching to, I don't want to say switching from one person to another, but essentially leaving her bad relationship and pursuing a better relationship with Jim that ends in a marriage. Sitcoms so often have that sense of we are watching a relationship develop and hoping for that marriage at the end kind of thing at the heart of the engine, right? And then we have an antagonist, or a person that mostly causes problems or gets in the way, Dwight. He's the lackey to Michael. He's always jockeying for position and competing with Jim and the others, and always, causing more problems. Sometimes he can be fun to bring in as part of a solution to a problem in an interesting way, and we love when people have to team up with the antagonist sometimes. That's always fantastic. But this is the heart of The Office's story engine elements. It comes down to, in a show that's just about people talking in rooms, basically, it comes down to character dynamics. How about Breaking Bad? Walter, flawed protagonist with persistent goal. Neat chemistry teacher with cancer who becomes a murderous drug baron to provide for his family. So his promise, progress, payoff is, the promise is he wants to get a bunch of money to provide for his family. The progress is we watch him setting up his drug empire, learning how to make meth, expanding his operation, adding more people to his operation, all those kind of steps towards building the empire. And then the payoff is the rewards that he gets along the way. The new job, the new partner, the new briefcase full of money, etc. And we have Jesse, of course, as the initial other really, really key aspect of the story engine. He's much more down to earth than Walt. He's the polar opposite of Walt in lots of ways. He is kind of uneducated, unintelligent, sort of addresses problems in a really brute force, direct kind of way. But he's got street smarts. He makes up for what the other characters lack. So that sense of having characters with complementing traits, as in traits that fill in the gaps that the other ones leave behind, is another key element to story engines. Okay. We won't go through all these different shows now, but because we only have 10 minutes left, and it looks like we have 2 log lines to look at. But try to remember your series logline should clarify what that story engine is, and it should feel like there often, if you have that central dynamic that you want to highlight and bring to the front, that can do a lot of the heavy lifting of building out that sense of your engine on the page. Okay, let's look at our last loglines. I saw Dan's first, so we've got a pilot logline for Outer Spice. It's a good title as well.
Hello.
Hi,
I
Dan.
put a little more time into it.
Awesome.
I think it's a little better now.
Cool. Read it out for us.
Outer Spice. A perfectionist chef takes a job on a shuttle as the first gourmet chef in space and must learn how to cook properly in zero gravity for picky tourists.
Awesome. Keep going.
And the pilot is, after her cooking business goes bankrupt, a desperate chef takes a job upon a tourist space shuttle and must provide a delicious banquet for a picky investor or risk being fired.
Nice, that works. I think it's working well. I would not say upon, because this is not a fairy tale, but just a job on a tourist space shuttle. Must provide a delicious banquet for a picky investor of the company or risk being fired. I think it's working pretty well. So is it just for the investor, though? A banquet would normally be for a lot of people.
Despite being, well, he's got money, of course someone wants to give him a family somehow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see what you mean. Must provide a delicious banquet for a picky investor of the company, meaning the space tourism company?
Yeah.
Okay. Or I thought you might have meant the chef, whoever hired the chefs. Or risk being, I guess it doesn't matter because she risks being fired either way. Yeah, this is working well. There's just something a little indefinite, or that I felt could be defined a little bit better. Like maybe saying something like, highlight what the challenge is going to be beyond just the fact that the eater is picky, because we want to know how you're going to sort of take advantage of the premise that you've given us. So maybe, she must make a dinner for a picky investor on his ship where the gravity drive is broken or something like that. Or like
going through the asteroid field.
Going through an asteroid field, yeah, exactly. It's just maybe highlight what is the specific sort of sci-fi challenge, more so than just, well, they're picky, they won't like some stuff. Make sense?
Yes.
Cool. But nice job, especially the series loglines looking really good. Questions? All right, thanks, Dan.
I think I'm good. I guess I gotta start outlining.
Alrighty. Thanks a lot. Eden.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay, you can hear me. Good.
Yes, I can hear you. We've got Eke Homo. Can you read out what you've got here for us?
Can I? So the series logline, please. I still don't know what to do with it. In a world where genetic engineering breeds a subjugated class, a resilient gaggle of biogenetically engineered humanoids must navigate abandonment, abuse, forging deep bonds as they challenge societal norms. It's a mouthful, but I like it more every time I read it.
It is just impossible to say in one breath, probably, though, right?
Yeah, that would be a problem. I think I probably could.
I would struggle too. Maybe a swimmer could do it, but
in a world where genetically, okay.
It's all right. You don't have to.
In a world where genetic engineering breeds a subjugated class of a resilient gaggle of biogenetically engineered humanoids must navigate abandonment and abuse, forging deep bonds as they challenge societal norms. I did it.
How do you feel? So I would reduce some words from this if you could. In a world where genetic engineering breeds a subjugated class, you could probably lose that whole first class. A resilient gaggle of biogenetically engineered slave creatures, right? You can kind of lose the much of the first clause because you're kind of explaining it twice. So start with that. Start with the group of characters. They must navigate abandonment and abuse, forging deep bonds as they challenge social norms. In what way are they challenging social norms?
Societal norms, and basically the whole premise is about them being subjugated, and the series revolves around their fight for equal rights.
As they fight for equal rights. So you mean like in the court, in the legal sense?
In every sense, basically.
Right, but so if the primary sort of external action is them trying to start, like a landmark court case or something like that, you probably want that in this series Loglines. So they're not just challenging societal norms, which could be something that almost anyone could do by just doing something that's not normally allowed. They're trying to like make a concrete change, aren't they?
In the bigger picture, yes, but in the smaller picture, basically it's also about like common decency being granted.
Right, but series Loglines about the big picture.
Okay.
All right, Pilot. Did you read this one already? No, go ahead and read that one for us.
No, and I redid it, so hopefully it's better. And if not, don't hesitate to tell me.
Okay.
Recovering addict turned father must prove the innocence of his non-human preschooler in an overblown conflict.
Oh, you had me in the first part in an overblown conflict.
Maybe in an overblown case? I don't know.
So, hang on. So, a recovering addict turned father must prove the innocence of his non-human preschooler. I was totally with you. But you probably want to first say what happens. So, what proof that he's innocent of what?
Okay. That
sounds like the
let's
inciting
go back
incident.
to the beginning.
Okay.
So, let me type it as I said. When his non-human child, preschooler, I like that.
Go ahead.
A human child on a playground. And so on and so forth. A recovering addict turned father must prove his innocence in an overblown case. Something.
When his non-human preschooler bites a human child on a playground, a recovering addict turned father must prove his son's innocence. Or else what? Or before what?
Before he is killed, basically.
There we go. Okay, that's important. Before he's executed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So is the dad representing the kid in court?
No.
Then why is it his job to prove his innocence?
They have a lawyer.
Okay. So how does he go about? You say he must prove the son's innocence. How does he go about doing that?
I haven't quite figured that part out yet.
Okay. Well, that would be... So we want to know what the first step is, basically, in the pilot, so it might be helpful to frame it a little bit around just that tangible, concrete objective. So,
well,
go ahead.
Well, there would be that he something band together with the rehoming facility, because that's where he gets the lawyer in the first place.
He has to join forces with a rehoming facility, and they're gonna help. How are they gonna help?
Well, they have the lawyer. They have access to the lawyer. It's all very convoluted when I try to explain it, because basically because he's an addict, he has been put to a job in the rehoming facility, and that's how he even gets to having that child in the first place, because otherwise he would just, I don't know, study college or something.
Okay.
Be a plumber.
So we're looking for, what's the first real challenge? What is the problem that your main character has to solve? So we know what the overall conflict or challenge is. The issue is that your kid is accused of a crime, and now we need to know, how is your main character going to go about trying to address or solve that problem? Is that we need to get the lawyer to sign on and agree to represent the case?
No, basically it's about turning the public opinion towards them, because the lawyer is on board. The problem is that the jury of peers is comprised of, people that are against the whole the society at large don't want these non-humans to get too many rights. And it is also the problem that this is like the first child that has been recorded. And also, usually when there is a child and there's a very small chance that there is one, they are immediately terminated if they don't, self-terminate at birth.
So it's illegal to have the kid at all?
It is not illegal. It is more unprecedented.
Okay.
There are no laws against or for it, because it literally shouldn't happen.
Okay. Does that play into the plot in some way?
Yes, because it's a case of we haven't seen this before, so now what?
So what challenge is the main character trying to overcome? It seems like, so you're saying he's trying to get public support on board, but he already has the lawyer. So it just seems like kind of an abstract
He has the lawyer,
goal.
but in a case with a journey of peers, you can only do so much.
So he's going to try to influence the jury? Isn't that against the whole point?
Well,
jury
not
interference?
influence the jury, but more like turn the jury to understand that this is a child that they are working with, that they have to put aside the fact that this is one of the non-humans, and they have to put their prejudices. That's the thing. They have to put the prejudice aside and treat him like a person. That is what is the problem, because you wouldn't put a 4-year-old in a court case.
Generally, no. But this sounds like the lawyer's job to convince the jury. You're just talking about he has to just win the case, basically. Convincing the jury is what the lawyer does, not the victim's dad. So I wonder, why is the father the main character and not the lawyer? What I would wonder, once the court case is going, what would the father even be doing?
Sorry, I was reading what Nacho said. I bit off more than I can chew, didn't I?
I'm not sure. How much can you chew?
Please don't put those thoughts in my head. I'm trying to stay off of my... Okay. So the reason why I just wanted to... I didn't want it to be happening in the courtroom for the most part. I wanted it to facilitate and to show what the world around them is like and how it treats them. And I wanted the main character to be an addict because of that, because as such, these people are also treated as lesser. Like, look at that junkie over there. He's never going to recover. He's always going to be the same thing. And basically that makes both of my characters underdogs.
I can see that, but what I mean to say is that you've tied up your premise in the legal system, and you've made this feel like a courtroom drama, but then you're saying you don't want it to take place in a courtroom. So you need to figure out...
No, I really don't. I feel like the whole court case would be happening in the background.
Then why is that your logline?
Or completely off-screen.
Off-screen? So the logline tells us what we're doing for the majority of the story. So it may be that you need to come up with a completely new logline if the court case is not even central to the plot.
You come in, because I don't know how to do that, because I am bad at loglines.
bad at loglines. But this is not even a question of the logline. This is a question of what's going on in the show. If that's not the main thing we're doing, I would just ask, what are we watching? What is the main conflict that is unfolding? And you can say you're not sure. You can say you're like, it's totally fine. I know you haven't written the script yet, but
the conflict is that the father feels powerless because his power has been stripped from him, and even if he does everything right, it can still result in his son being killed because nobody in society at large perceives his son as a human being, whereas he actually does.
So, but I'm still not sure what we're doing in the episode. It sounds like maybe what you might want to think about is removing the court element from this in the first place. This is just a possible solution. If you're saying you don't want it to take place in the courtroom, you're not interested in writing this as a legal drama, maybe just the kid bites someone and now his neighbors and people like that are sort of mad at him and maybe considering getting revenge or spreading a smear campaign against him or something like that. But I think you might have to extricate it from the courtroom to some extent to do that. Just an idea.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Sorry, I went quiet because when my brain starts crunching what you said, mouth stops working.
It's okay.
Okay.
Do you want to just give it some more thought and you can check in at the next lab or boot camp?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. But that is very thought-provoking, if not helpful.
Great.
It is helpful as well. I don't mean to be mean. It's just like everything happening in head. Okay, thank you.
I understand. Okay.
That helped.
I hope that's given you just some stuff to think about. Thank you for sharing this. And yeah, you will get there. Keep working at it. Thanks, Eden. Okay, we're at the end of our time. I'm going to remind everyone what we have coming up. The class, there's no video editing class later today, like we mentioned before. That has been moved up. But besides that, we do have plenty of events coming up, including these free classes. Let me make sure they're all on screen. Scene Workshop, May 3rd. Dialogue and Subtext, May 10th. Theme, May 17th. Another Novel Outline Workshop, May 4th. And class on Victory Lap, May 31st. That's a sort of post-finale finale. And here's all our recurring events. Thank you guys for coming by. If you got feedback on your logline today, then I would say this week your goal is to refine your logline as much as you can and try to finish it up and start on your story beats if you know what that is and you are ready to do that. If you have no idea what that is and it's too early and maybe you've never written a script before, just finish the logline this week and fill out your sketchbook. Remember, the sketchbook is that big unsorted list, or not just list, it's like a collection of all of your ideas and things that could come up in the story. You want to think about your characters, the themes, the moments, the dialogue, everything, pictures, links, videos, research, web articles, anything else, just include it all in the sketchbook. You're gathering and collecting a bunch of info. And then you want to just try to answer these questions this week. Title, genre, format and time slot, comps, series and pilot loglines. And just start reading. Your last goal is you will be reading a pilot every week and telling us what did you like, what did you notice, what did you learn. We have a link to a website. This is a Google site that has a ton of TV pilots to read. Your goal is to read one of these front to back every single week. So start reading, answer these questions on your sketchbook, and you should have a great start in this pilot bootcamp. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Hope this advice I've been able to give you today has been useful, and we'll look forward to seeing you at your next script camp workshop or event. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend.